Speaking of the president, he just passed me a note while I'm standing here. He wanted me to hold this up. This is the poll that I cited, the CBS YouGov poll.
After Donald Trump's disastrous speech before Congress yesterday, and as bad news keeps pouring in, both Trump and his White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, are going to increasingly pathetic and desperate lengths to try to posture that Trump is not only popular, but increasingly so, when the fact of the matter is that a devastating new poll has confirmed Trump's honeymoon is over and he is officially an unpopular president. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I want you to see Caroline Leavitt, Trump's spokesperson at the White House. She is basically the embodiment of the MAGA movement, the culmination of, Sean Spicer, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany. Well, Caroline Leavitt is basically the latest model. She is everything that Trump wants a MAGA spokesperson to be. I want you to see how desperate both she and Trump are to pretend, especially after last night's disastrous speech, that Trump is somehow very popular.
And Americans loved what they heard. According to a CBS YouGov survey, an overwhelming 76% of those watching approved of President Trump's speech last night. The president spoke about how he's taken more than 400 executive actions on his key promises. The expectations were high, and President Trump is exceeding them. According to brand new polling from the Daily Mail, President Trump has never been more popular as his approval ratings are reaching historic highs. More Americans.
The Daily Mail. The Daily Mail. According to, she is hanging her hats on the Daily Mail. That is why Donald Trump is so popular. Except, of course, if you look at the aggregate data as compiled by 538, one of, if not the most reputable in the business, Trump's honeymoon is officially over. And his disapproval is now greater than his approval rating. And his honeymoon period lasted about 40 days, 44 days. That's where we are. I'll also point out, because people have pointed this out as well, that in that survey that Caroline Leavitt touted of the response to Trump's speech, well, in the polling about it, Republicans are overrepresented. MAGA Republicans are oversampled because it was Republicans who primarily watched it. If you look at the party identification of those respondents, 51%, a majority, were Republicans. Only 27% were independents, and only 20 were Democrats. So it makes sense that that speech would have high marks from a Republican majority audience because they're cultishly devoted to Trump. And as we discussed in previous videos, when you compare first speeches of terms from Trump compared to his predecessors, this speech did not perform particularly well. It actually performed more poorly than Trump's first speech before Congress the first time he was president. That's how bad it was. And again, in terms of Trump's overall approval rating, it's not good, folks. It's not good at all. Again, 538 has compiled the data. The approval and disapproval have been narrowing over time, but I imagine as a consequence of many factors, not the least of which being Trumpflation skyrocketing, a Trump recession purportedly around the corner, and the Trump trade war, Trump's approval rating is officially at a 0.3% net, okay? Now, could that change tomorrow? Sure, but as of this moment, Donald Trump is officially an unpopular president. The Hill goes into, an article about his downward trajectory over the past 40 days. But I also want to play this clip here, too, because later on in that press conference hosted by Caroline Leavitt, Trump actually passed her a note to highlight a specific poll. Pretty pathetic.
And he looked great. Speaking of the president, he just passed me a note while I'm standing here. He wanted me to hold this up. This is the poll that I cited, the CBS YouGov poll that shows that 76% of those who watched the president's speech last night approved of his speech. And so it goes to my earlier point that I made in my monologue about how incredibly sad it is that we have a modern-day Democrat Party who is so severely out of touch with the American public. This is a great poll. The ultimate poll, though, came on November 5th when the president won by an overwhelming margin.
An overwhelming margin. An overwhelming margin! These people are so pathetic. He didn't even win a majority vote. He won by a plurality. He won by a plurality. If that was an overwhelming margin, consider the Biden victory in 2020. 7 million more votes than Trump. Not just the popular vote, not just the Electoral College vote, but a popular majority. Of course, that's a fake election, right? Of course, that's how MAGA copes with it. I love it, though. The Trump is so insecure that he is handing his... Oh, my God, please talk about this. Caroline, talk about this poll right here. This poll looks so good for me. It's so good, except, again, the majority of those who watched the speech were Republican. They were already predisposed to like everything that left that man's mouth. This idea that this is indicative of nationwide popularity is bullshit. And facts don't care about your feelings, Caroline. They don't care about your feelings. And I'm sure you're in your feelings at the moment. I want to look at one of the most recent polls, which helped swing the approval rating for Trump into negative territory. It's the legendary Ipsos poll, Ipsos Reuters. Again, not good. Overall, do you approve or disapprove of the way Trump is handling his job as president? 43% say approve, 50% say disapprove. Not good. Would you say the following things are heading in the right direction, or are they on the wrong track? Only 22% say the cost of living under Trump is heading in the right direction. 60% say wrong track. What about the national economy? Right track or wrong track? Only 31% say it's going in the right direction. 51% say the wrong track. What about national politics? Right direction, wrong track. 33% say right direction. 50% say wrong track. American foreign policy. 33% say right direction. 49% say wrong track. Employment and jobs. 33% say right direction, but 47% say wrong track. Do you approve of the way Trump is handling the economy? Only 39% say yes. This used to be Trump's biggest issue, right? He was the mimetic. I'm the apprentice billionaire. Nobody knows business like me. And he's underwater on the economy? 39%, 49%, 50% nearly say that he is handling the economy poorly? God. What about foreign policy? Only 37% approve of his handling of foreign policy. 50% disapprove. 37%, only 37% approve of the way Trump is handling unemployment and jobs. 47% disapprove. What about dealing with Congress? 38% of respondents approve of how he's dealing with Congress. 45% disapprove. International trade, only 36% approve compared to 51% who disapprove. Taxation, 37% approval, 46% disapproval. Corruption, oh my God, that's a big one because Trump is one of the most corrupt presidents, if not the most corrupt president in American history. Only 39% approve of how he's handling corruption, 47% disapprove. He's just brutalized on the environment. Oh, this one cracked me up. The effort he's making to unify the country. It's hard to imagine anybody approving how he's doing that, but 37% approve of Trump's handling of an effort to unify the country, but 51% disapprove because they don't think he's trying to unify the country. Your cost of living, 31% approve, 54% disapprove. Gun violence, he's just underwater on virtually everything. Rule of law, 35% approval to 48% disapproval. Jeez, just the more and then on specific policy issues, what about him pressuring to Denmark to sell us Greenland or to give us Greenland? He's just underwater on this. Oh, Doge? Oh my gosh, Doge. Okay. Do you agree or disagree with the statement? Trump has gone too far in his program to cut federal spending that's led by Elon Musk. 50% agree. Only 37% disagree. 50%, half of the respondents agree that Trump's gone too far. And only 37% disagree with that. What about, do you agree or disagree Trump should be more aggressive in his program to cut federal spending led by Elon Musk? Only 29% agree. 53% disagree. Other questions about Musk, basically compassion, engaging with compassion and precision. 62% agree that the federal cuts should be more surgical and more compassionate. Only 20% disagree. This is disastrous, folks. Disastrous for Musk. 44% support a task force led by Musk, Doge, but 53% oppose it. Doge is underwater. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which protects Americans from fraudulent activity, it saved them $20 billion over the past several years. Musk basically destroyed it. Do you support or oppose it? Do you support closing down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or do you oppose it? 32% support it, which is ridiculous, but 63% oppose cutting the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I mean, again, just goes on and on. This is disastrous polling for Trump. Disastrous. Intelligencer from New York Magazine has an article about this. Even as he was delivering the most partisan address to Congress maybe ever, Trump's public support seemed to be regularly eroding. An updated 538 average of Trump's approval ratings on March 4th showed him going underwater for the first time since reoccupying the White House. Perhaps Trump will get lucky and conditions in this country will improve enough to validate his agenda, but it's more likely that the same sour public climate that overwhelmed Joe Biden will now afflict his predecessor and successor. And it goes into the Reuters Ipsos poll. So all the hype about Trump being a popular president who is in the midst of engineering a major realignment of the American electorate is already looking more than a bit hollow. Trump has a solid Republican base of support and a solid Democratic opposition, with independents currently leaning towards the Democratic Party on most issues. Perhaps Trump's agenda will gain momentum and support, but since he's not trying to reach out beyond his party's base at all, he's going to need a lift from Americans who only voted for him in 2024 as the lesser of evils and may not vote in the 2026 midterms at all. At present, Trump has lost whatever presidential honeymoon he initially enjoyed after his return to the White House and needs to find new converts to return to genuine popularity, and he's not off to a great start. Pretty brutal, which explains again how pathetic Caroline Leavitt and Trump are to try to posture that this somehow isn't happening, and Donald Trump is truly the second coming of President George Washington, President Abraham Lincoln, or President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But quite frankly, he's not even at Joe Biden or Barack Obama's level of popularity. Their honeymoons lasted a hell of a lot longer than his. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.